Hey everybody, Randy Filson, and I'm here today for another episode of Remembering Our Roots. My daughter Reagan's with me today to do our camera work, and we're on location here in beautiful Cincinnati, Ohio. Why are we here? Well, today we're going to be talking about my ancestor, John Filson. John Filson was my great-great-great-grandfather Samuel Filson's first cousin. John Filson was born in 1747 in Chester County, Pennsylvania. He was the son of Davidson Filson, who was the son of John Filson, who was the first one of the Filson family to come to America in 1737 from Northern Ireland. John's grandfather died when he was only a year old, but John left him in his will one of his most precious possessions, his family Bible. John carried that Bible with him every day of his life. Now, John lived in the Brandywine Valley, but he went to school at a boarding school in Calora, Maryland, West Nottingham Academy. And his teacher and mentor there was the man who started the school, Reverend Charles Finley. Charles Finley would later become president of New Jersey College, which today is Princeton. John not only went to school there, but when he finished, he became one of the teachers there. Now, years later, John would acquire some land grants. And like some other family, he wanted to go west. So he went down over the Alleghenies, down to Fort Pitt of Pittsburgh, got on a flatboat, and headed down the Ohio River. And he landed at Limestone Landing in Kentucky. And he took his first footsteps there. From there, he went up through the Buffalo Trace, by Blue Licks, where the Salt Licks were, on into Lexington, Kentucky. And in Lexington, Kentucky, he taught the first year of Transylvania College was organized. After a couple of years, John wanted to start his own seminary in Lexington, Kentucky, but he was interrupted by two gentlemen one day, a Robert Patterson and a Matthias Denman. They were wanting a partner, and they thought John Filson would make the perfect partner, as he was a great surveyor. They were wanting to start a river town on the Ohio River, and Matthias Denman already owned 80-some acres, but they needed more. So they headed back to Limestone Landing, which now had changed its name to Maysville, Kentucky. And they met a man by the name of John Cleves Sims. He was one of the largest landowners in the whole state of Ohio. He owned over 1 million acres in what was termed as the Sims Purchase. The next morning in Maysville, Kentucky, the 4 men and 24 other men that they were going to use to help them work boarded a flatboat and left Maysville on a September icy cold watery Ohio River. And they landed right here, right on the banks of the Ohio River, across from the Licking River. Now, there was a reason they wanted to land here, and John Filson had told them this would be the perfect spot. The perfect spot because it was at the circle of the river. It was at a bend. You could see way up east, and you could see way west, just in case it would be an Indian attack. But also, it was across from the Licking River, and the Licking River was a main navigation access for many settlers going to the Salt Lick at Blue Licks and also going on into Lexington. This was the perfect spot. The next day, John and Robert Patterson and Matthias Denman and the men scouted this entire area, looking for the ideal spot. And eventually, as the men cleared away in the land, John took his measuring staff, his compass, and his chain, and laid out the town. He would put the businesses on the front street of the town, facing the river, and he'd put the lots for the log cabins on the backside. He would name the streets. But there was one thing else he needed to name, and that was the name of the town. Robert Patterson and Matthias Denman said they couldn't come up with a name. So John thought about it, and he used his languages, his Greek, his Latin, and his French, and came up with the name Losanaville. Now what that meant was opposite or across from Lower Valley City, or in other words, a city across from the mouth of the Licking River in the Lower Ohio Valley. That name would not last long, as weeks later John Filson and a group of men would go out to the northwest of the city to look for some more land where they could start another small settlement where farmers could grow crops, vegetables, raise hogs, raise cows in order to feed the people in the town. And on one day, they didn't realize that they were real close to one of the largest continuing villages, Indian villages, of the Shawnee Nation. They were attacked. Everyone escaped but John Filson. We will talk more about him on a later episode. Cincinnati grew, or Losanaville grew, and John Cleese Sims, decided to bring in another surveyor from the state of Ohio named Israel Ludlow. And he came in and he wanted to change the streets and put the houses in front and the businesses in the back. But Robert Patterson and Denman disagreed. And it's a good thing that they did, because 232 years later, basically, it's still set up the same way here. Businesses on the front, houses in the back. One thing they couldn't stop was that Israel Ludlow and a general by the name of St. Clair wanted to change the name of Losanaville, and they did, and they changed it to Cincinnati. It was named for the Society of Cincinnati, which General St. Clair was the president, and it was a group of Revolutionary War generals. Of course, they got their name from the Roman general Cincinnatus. Cincinnati became very fast, very big, quick. By December of that same year, 1788, there were over 29 two-story log cabins for businesses and over 11 families living in log cabins behind it. By the year 1800, there were over 1,000 people living in Cincinnati. And by the year 1820, 10,000 people lived in the city of Cincinnati. So much so that General George Washington, fearing many Indian attacks, ordered that a fort be built. And so northeast of here, a fort was built, and they named it after General George Washington and called it Fort Washington. That fort would remain here for several years with as many as 600 soldiers to protect all of this valley. One can only imagine if John Filson were standing right here where we are today and looking out over everything that has happened in the last 232 years. But one also can't imagine how John Filson described what he saw that night when he was standing right here in this general vicinity, looking out over a dark, empty Ohio River at the mouth of the Licking River, when he wrote these words. Scan. Kentucky, the most extraordinary country upon which the sun had ever shone. And this country, like this land of promise, flowing with milk and honey, a land of brooks and streams and waters, of fountains and depths that spring up out of the valleys and out of the hills, a land of wheat and barley and all kinds of fruits. You shall eat bread without scarceness and not lack anything in it, where you are neither chilled with the cold of Capricorn nor scorched with the burning heat of Cancer. The mildness of your air so great that you neither feel the effects of infectious fogs or of pestilent vapors. Thus, a country favored with the smiles of heaven will probably be inherited by the first people the world ever knew. We want to thank you all for joining us today on this another episode of Remembering Our Roots. And we hope you've enjoyed what you've seen on this rainy and windy late afternoon. We hope you'll join us again on some of our next episodes. We will have more information on John Filson and many of our other ancestors. But until then, thanks for watching, and may God bless.